could have everybody have a seat so we could start our program. We will definitely have time to look at artwork afterwards as well. There's a lot of great stuff here to see. I know it's hard to tear yourselves away from the wonderful artwork that we have here. But we do have a time frame and we want to get going. We have some lead artists that are here with us that are phenomenally in demand. If somebody could open up the door for Zoltan back there who stepped out. Thanks, Marwin. I want to start off by saying Yaweskano Gagwego, Sano Gwagani Gyatso Agenyo Gwayo, Anandawa Ga Ni. Tonawan de Anandawa Ga Yointsa de Dane Nek Deadi. I introduced myself in my Anandawaka Gawano language, which is people of the Great Hill. Anandawaka translates to people of the Great Hill. We are known as Seneca in history books. We are part of the original Five Nations Iroquois Confederacy. We are now the Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy in what is now called New York State. I'm on staff here with the Longhouse Education and Cultural Center. We are ecstatic to be able to host this Tears of Duk'WibahL International Indigenous Visual Arts Gathering and Exhibition. This gathering and exhibition is part of our 20th anniversary, which the Longhouse celebrated in September of 2015. We are 2 full-time staff and right now one part-time staff, and we brought Mario, who just stepped outside, who is also a co-curator with myself for this exhibition. Mario was here in 2001 when we hosted the very first International Indigenous Visual Arts Gathering, which was the very first International Indigenous Visual Arts Gathering hosted in the continental United States. We are fortunate to be able to do that because Lillian Pitt, who's sitting here in front, attended an International Indigenous Visual Arts Gathering in New Zealand and came back to the States and was so impressed with that hosting that she approached Tina Kukan Miller, the director of the Longhouse, and said, you guys should host an international gathering. And that's all she had to say, and we did. So we're very fortunate that we have hosted the second and only one of 2 international Indigenous visual arts gatherings in the continental United States. So there was a gathering that was hosted in 2007 in Hawaii, but we can brag that we are very pleased and honored to say that we have hosted the only 2 international Indigenous visual arts gatherings in the continental United States. So what that means is we have over 100 artists from Aotearoa, New Zealand, Indigenous Maori artists. We have Hawaiian artists, we have Alaskan Native artists, and we have First Nations artists from Canada. I actually have a list here. We have 40 U.S. artists, we have 8 Alaskan Native artists, we have 9 Hawaiian artists, 33 Maori artists, 1 Samoan and 1 Samoan. So we're ecstatic to be able to host all of these people here. We at the Longhouse have participated in international Indigenous visual arts gatherings as volunteer staff and as artists. I myself have participated in 4 gatherings. So for me to be able to be part of the Longhouse team to host these incredible artists here at the Longhouse and at the Evergreen State College is a phenomenal privilege and a phenomenal honor. And we are very ecstatic and excited to play host, to reciprocate the generosity that have been shared with us from folks like Sandy Edsett. Where's Sandy Edsett? I need a big wave from Sandy. And June Grant back there, phenomenal hosts. They could write a book on hospitality and generosity in regards to culturally sharing and hosting folks because they're so good at it, as are the Hawaiians. What we're going to do is we have a number of lead artists that are heading up our studios. Those are carving, glass, printmaking, painting, ceramics, fiber arts. Did I miss any? We actually have a stone carver working all by himself. And so what we're going to do is we're going to allow our lead artists in each of those disciplines an opportunity to share a perspective of what they're doing here, what's going on in their studios. And we also have some folks who are joining us who've been at previous gatherings to share some history about the dynamics and perspective and just all the incredibly wonderful things that happen here in the short time that they happen. I'm going to turn the mic over to Mario Caro, who is with us on staff here at the Longhouse and is a co-curator of this exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindley. It's been such a pleasure working with Lindley on this project. We've been working not only on the exhibition, but all kinds of different facets of the event. So it's been a pleasure, sort of, trying to do the triage that we sometimes need to do on these events. But I'm going to keep it brief. I'm very, very grateful that you've all made it here. This is very kind of a privileged moment in that we have this very elite group of artists with us. So I'm really dying to hear what they have to say. I am going to ask Dan Friday to come up first, and I apologize to those folks who have seniority and probably should go earlier. But he has a situation back at his shop that will tear him away because he's the one that's running the glass studio. And for those of you who know the deal with working with glass, it's a very kind of crucial situation not to be away from your gear. So please come on up, Dan, and introduce yourself. You can talk a little bit about your work, your object here, if you want to go us to go to it, and then just tell us a little bit about your time here at the gallery.
Thank you, Mario. OCM Haishka, thank you again. I'm feeling really fortunate to be here. I can't tell you how honored I am to work. And sorry that I'm going first, but the meter's running and I'm double parked in the glass shop. So anyway, I do want to take the time to say thanks. I mean, the caliber of artists and the amount of information that's going on here is just mind-numbing, and I feel like we're just getting the ball rolling. I think a lot of us could stay another 2 weeks easily, and this is just a tremendous opportunity. I'm helping people create their visions in glass, which is a medium that not everybody is familiar with, so it's great because I also learn quite a bit in working with everybody too. So this is an intensive course for me personally, not to mention the other I spent some time carving last night, and this is just, like I said, I mean, I feel like, I don't want to be premature, but it feels to me like a life-changing experience. Again, I'm just really honored to be here. My auntie, Mary-Ellen Hilaire, OCM, she had a vision of the Longhouse long ago. She was the first female professor here at Evergreen, and like I said, just to carry a small candle to like the work that all you have done before us to get here is, if I could do it, it's just a huge honor. My work, I'll talk about it a bit. I have a piece in the back, which is the gooey duck, and I thought that this was an appropriate place to have a gooey duck, was at Evergreen University here. But it's a piece I made a long time ago, not necessarily with this in mind, but when the opportunity came up, I'm like, there we go, take it home. Gooey ducks, if you are not from around here, they're unique to this area, and I think a lot of, just locally and probably globally, I mean, Native people and indigenous people are often the stewards of the land, whether they are nominated or like it or not, and the gooey duck and the mollusk is a huge, biodiverse, it's one of the largest biodiverse things in the Puget Sound is the mollusk and shellfish population. And all those things are threatened, and I think even more now than ever before. I think we're all feeling the elbow to elbow on the globe feeling, and how our resources are being really stretched. And just as of last week, there was a release of 300,000 Atlantic farm salmon up. I'm a quarter lummi and a quarter swimish, so all my cousins are out there fishing night and day and trying to catch as many of these genetically modified fish that are diseased, one, and two, just kind of threatening an already endangered species, the coho, run right now through the San Juan Islands. And the salmon, we're people of the salmon in the Northwest, so although it is a beautiful piece of glass, I think that, hopefully it speaks for itself, but you know, those are the thoughts that I think about when I think about things like that. You know, our natural resources that are, you know, if we don't take care of them, and I think historically Native people have just been stewards that way, but I think we all share a part in that, you know, and that's you know, and so I just feel honored to talk about that. I also make shiny, pretty things for shiny, pretty needs, but I appreciate it when I can get my hands in the material and work. We've had, usually when I work for schools or institutions, I work with about 5 artists over 2.5 weeks, and this week, I think as of when I get back, if we, God willing, can finish all these projects, we'll have worked with about 35 different artists over in the glass shop. And like I said, I skipped lunch today, and I'm happy to do it because this is, again, a treat for me to be here. And so, yeah, thanks again for all involved, and thanks again to all my elders and OCM. Haishka, thank you.
Okay, next we'll hear from Dempsey Bob.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I want to thank the Longhouse people too, and our my Maori brothers and sisters. we did a lot of work. Like, you look at this show, okay? This originated in New Zealand, and us working together. We've had hundreds of shows, maybe, all over the place. And this is the result of it. And you see how well our Northwest Coast pieces go with Maori art, because Maori art is great art too. Northwest Coast is great art. The problem with the Maori art is it's so far away and we don't have the information, you know, on the art, because it's a very beautiful art form. And you know, like myself, like I don't want to talk about my work, but I'm going to talk about what the effect working with the Maoris and the Hawaiians had on me as an artist. Our cultures are very similar but very different, because we're sea people too. We're longhouse people. We're carvers. We're weavers. We're singers. We're dancers. And we come from the canoe culture. So there's a lot of similarities. Like in New Zealand, their traditional tools are the same shapes as ours, same materials, just different handles. So there's so many things. Like their traditional weaving is the same as our Raven's Tail and Chilkat weavings. And so there's some amazing things. Like there's the way they start the baskets in some parts of New Zealand is exactly the same way they start the basket in Prince Rupert and nowhere else in the world. So, you know, like, there's got to be some kind of connection. And I think, you know, being around the Pacific Rim, we've been working, trying to help our people. That's what we've been doing, helping each other, sharing. And what happened to me was with our culture, seeing the Maori culture and the beauty of their culture makes us think about our culture. Because when you live in your own culture, you think about things, but you take it for granted until you really have to explain it. And seeing the Maori culture and comparing it to our culture, what they did for us was they showed us so many different things. But what they did was they twisted it on us too. But we twisted it on them too. And they were spying on me, but I was spying on them too. And I'm a good spy. But I went there and I met a lot of great elders with good information. Because art, I believe, you have to keep learning. You have to keep pushing. Because if you stop learning, you stop being an artist. And you have to train yourself to see, to really see. And you know, like my things change because they challenged me as an artist, and we challenged them too, just to get better. It's not a competition, because when people ask me if I compete against other artists, I don't give a shit about them. I worry about me. I'm trying to get better. Because that's a big enough problem, How am I going to get better? I compete against myself just to get better. And the only way, what I find is artists, okay? Artists that travel and learn. Traveling is one of the best learning experiences you could have. And the artists that travel, you got more to offer in your art. You got more to put it into your art. Like this idea of, I'm working on this idea of wall sculptures. And where I got that idea was New Zealand. We were at, I forget what year it was, but in Napier. They gave us a 15-foot totora, and we had to do. I had to do a size this big, that long, on this piece, and then the Haidas had to do one, and then the Maoris did the bottom. I think Lionel Grant did that. And I had this idea of this Tlingit warrior with his helmet and his visor. And then they showed us the log. It was that wide. It was this deep. I said, holy shit, that's not going to fit. So what I did was, I got the idea, and what I did was I twisted. To keep my scale. I twisted. How I did this guy. This here is the corner of the piece of wood, okay? And technically, it shouldn't work, because this is the center of the corner of the wood, right? And what I did was I wrapped the face on one plane right around. Because technically, this one plane and this one plane shouldn't work, but I made it work. And what I did with the warrior, I kept the scale by twisting him and making him bigger this way. And I did the head, and I did an eagle on the top. And I got one of the Maoris to help me with the eagle head. But that's where I got the idea from. And we did that in 4 days. We did it in 4 days, like working day and night. But we finished it in 4 days. It's at Sandy's place, I guess. He's the guy. It was his fault. He's the one that made us do it. No, we've been doing this and sharing, and it's been a great time. Like myself as an artist, and you have to find your inspiration. And what I do too is, because artists, you get empty, because you're giving, all your energy goes into your things, and you got to fill it up with something. And people think I've been in New Zealand 10 times, I think now. And I told the Maoris I'm trying to quit. It's getting further and further. And they say to me, just come down. Yeah, come on down. I'm another 4 hours from here, up north, from here to go over there. But I'm inspired when I get back. I'm inspired by the people, by the land, by the art. Because art is important. Art is what makes us human. Art is what makes us Tlingit. Art is what makes us Maori. Art is the conscience of societies. Great art. And if you understand the Northwest Coast, our ancestors made great art, great sculpture. Some of the greatest sculpture ever done at any time. Maori too. There are some great Maori sculptures. And I learn from them. I just look at it. I don't copy them. Like one time I was studying bronze casting in Italy, And I met this Australian guy, and he says to me, you know, really sarcastic, but I knew he was prejudiced. He said, you know, why did you come here to be like Michelangelo? And I never said anything because some bad would have came out and it would have been a big fight. So I didn't say anything because I knew he already made up his mind, and it doesn't matter what I said, it's not going to change him. So I didn't say anything, but I just got better. And I got successful because success is the best revenge. Anyways, what I did was, I'm Tlingit. I'll never be like Michelangelo. Why should I be? It's not my culture. My culture is my stuff, and it's enough just to do it. But you know what we're trying to do here is share, because sharing is what builds art, builds culture. Culture is very important because you know what I see in the societies, okay? Our society, I don't want to mention it, but it's getting shallow. The depth is getting shallow, and that's why the children are lost. And we're very fortunate because we've got some of our spiritual things left. But I don't want to say anything else about it because we don't talk about that. But it's true. Because if you you lose your culture, everything is meaningless. And that's why the kids are lost. That's why it's important. We have to show them. And I'm still teaching too, but I'm trying to quit. I'm trying to run away. I told my students I'm going to carve a canoe and I'm going to sneak up to Alaska, hide up there, so I'm going to get my own work done. I told these guys too. But you know, I was lucky. I met the right people at the right time, and I was ready as an artist. I was ready. I was lucky, and it fell into place. And then I found out that my great-grandfather was an artist. I'm not saying that it comes down in families, but I was born in the right family. My grandmother was a basket weaver. And my mother. So I was lucky, and I listened, and I was close to them. And they told me stories, And that's why I'm here. Because art comes down to the individual. It comes down to the quality, the integrity, the knowledge, the spiritual too, of the individual. Art has to come from a foundation. Art has to come from truth. Because, you know, like I realize, like, people are trying to innovate today, but you have to master your tradition. True innovation has to come from tradition. It can't come from nowhere else. Because if you innovate, it has to work. I'm trying to drag my people down too, but that's what I'm trying to do. But I won't talk no more. I've been talking all day over there. And the artists, they don't listen anyways. It just bounce off. What we say is you could always tell a Tlingit, but you can't tell them much. I always want to thank Mario, too. Mario the Great. We call him Mario the Great. All the people that organized the show, I know how much work it is. And it's a great show. I just want to thank you for coming, too. It's... I don't like to talk about it, you know, but I like to do it. And my students are waiting for me. And I got to get back to work. And we're trying to finish. We're trying to finish some stuff. But it's really good to see your interest. And if you guys want to come and see us, we're down there. We're down by the carving shed. We're all working. And we only got 2 days left. But, you know, like, all these great things come from good people. My grandfather said, we forgot to be good people. That's why we're having so much trouble. Thank you.
Okay, keeping it completely arbitrary, kind of, let me ask Nora Naranjo Morse to come up and tell us about her work. Do whatever you want.
Okay, thanks. I'm sure the other lead artists will appreciate this. We've been on our feet for the last 7 days, so I'm going to sit down. I come from New Mexico. I'm a Tewa Pueblo woman, and I come from a long generation of women who have worked with clay for utilitarian and ceremonial purposes, and this has gone on for centuries. And when I was growing up, I had 6 sisters and 3 brothers. My mother was either cooking or scolding us. So there were times in the household where there was a lot of activity, and there would be a spot in my mother and father's home where it would be quiet. And my mother would find that corner, and she would be making pottery. And that was the most content and serene when she was working with this clay. And I remember being a little girl and coming around the corner because somebody was chasing me, and I stopped and I saw her and I thought, oh, I want that look. Because she had this such a serene look on her face. And I think about that time because she's gone now, and all the things that she's taught me, all the things that she learned from her grandmother and the people that she came from have been incorporated into the understanding of the clay that I use. And so it's become very important for me to remember those things because they feed me every single day, because there was a whole philosophy about gathering the clay. And when you drive into the mountains and gather the clay, there really is a moment where you realize the impact of all of those people that have come before you, that are pushing you forward and that are reminding you what is so important about this clay. About 2 months ago, when I was asked to be one of the lead artists, I went into the mountains again and I started collecting the clay. It took me about a month, a little over a month maybe, to collect the clay, bring it down, process it, and then ship it. So there were several hundred pounds of clay that I shipped. And it's a very arduous process. And it goes through many steps, and to the point where you're sifting the clay that you've gathered, and it's going in a drop at a time. And you watch the ants crawling over your feet, and you see the clouds passing by. And at that moment, for me, is always very pivotal, because I know that I am going to that place of clay, to that place that I saw on my mother's face. And that takes you into that area and starts preparing you for when you actually start creating. Because I really believe that that philosophy of clay gathering and clay preparing is something that prepares you also for how you live your life, how you straighten your back when you're facing challenges. And that's basically what is being said to the young people. You know, face your challenges like the man and the woman that you are. And so in preparing this clay, I guess we could have easily bought the clay, but I don't know where that clay comes from. I'm not familiar with it. This clay is the foundation of not only the utilitarian and ceremonial purposes, but also we use clay and mud and straw to build our own homes. So it really is the foundation. In the desert, you use the resources that you can, that's most available. And for us, in dry climate, in the dirt climate, we're using all of this material to build our lives. So that's why it was important for me to go gather the clay, ship it here, and then share it with all of these wonderful, amazing, talented people who have come for the past week. And they were very open because they'd never worked with this material before, but they were brave, and we all went forward. And today we're firing, so you're welcome to come to the studio and look at what we have been doing. I'm wearing this, I've had this all week, and they gave it to us at the first part of the gathering because it's a witness cloth, and I tied it onto my purse. I would hold it sometimes because it is a cloth, I guess, that you hold to witness everything that's been happening, all those incredible moments during this week. And I've wrapped chili in this. I've wiped my forehead when it got too hot from polishing pottery. I've used this, and it's witnessed all the people that have come near me. And so I brought it up today to give me strength so that because I'm witnessing you at this point, I'm putting that also into this cloth. It's been an incredible week, and the first time I ever came here, it was 2001, and I was shocked by the acceptance and the kindness and the generosity of all the people that come here. So I want to thank everybody for supporting that. I want to thank the artists who came this week and shared their stories and those moments of kindness. And walking into the clay studio at times, I could see that same serene look on these women, and it made me realize how important the earth is and what it's doing for us and how it's feeding us in so many ways. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, let's hear from Denise Wallace then. Unexpectedly.
Back here. Oh. A little to the side, is that okay? Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Denise Wallace, and I was originally from Seattle. I was born and raised in Seattle, and my mother is Alaska Native, Sugpiaq from Prince William Sound in Alaska, and my father's German. They met in Seattle and raised 6 kids, and I'm one of those kids. And I moved to northern New Mexico, Santa Fe, in 1977 to go to the Institute of American Indian Arts. And I stayed there for 20 years and practiced as a jeweler. I did not grow up making jewelry. I didn't know much about it, so it was a new venture for me, and it's become my life. In regards to these gatherings, in the mid-90s, Lillian Pitt basically grabbed my hand and said, I want you to go to this gathering in New Zealand. And I knew nothing of New Zealand. I didn't know anything about the people or anything, so I had to do a quick study. And I'm so forever grateful to Lillian for that opportunity. I think it was changing for me. I'd been a practicing artist for, at that point, probably almost 20 years. So I'd been doing it for a while. But that experience, being with the Maoris, thank you, Sandy and June and everybody else who was so kind to us and welcomed all of us artists from all over. We also had this type of gathering, so there was at least 100 artists there. And it just was really moving to see how we were treated and accepted and loved immediately, and how much they valued us, not just as artists, but as Indigenous artists, and how much they honored us for doing that. And I can tell you that I didn't feel that kind of feeling at any time in my life. So it was very changing for me to know that I was honored for my work, because it comes from such a long history of Indigenous people. Anyway, I'm really happy to still be a part of all of this. We've had many artists that have been with us through the process, and some of them are no longer here, and we honor their memory as well. As far as what we're doing in the jewelry area, we have, like many disciplines, we have many different types of techniques and materials that we work with. And I do mostly silver, gold, work in metals. So we're doing quite a bit of metal work, as well as we have bone and ivory carvers and stone carvers that are up there. Some of our artists have been also jewelry makers for many years, and some of the people that are joining us are just curious, and they're coming in and learning things for the first time and translating their ideas into metal. So it's really fun to watch their ideas and realizing that they can work with these materials and pretty quickly come up with something that, you know, something tangible. So anyway, you are also welcome to come into the jewelry section and see what we're doing. We are up on the second floor of, I don't know what the building's, Building 2, yeah, thank you, right next to the printmaking. Thank you for inviting us, Tina, and hosting this event. These events are extremely important to us. We don't get opportunities. We all, many of us know each other, but we don't get an opportunity like this to spend time with each other and see how everybody does what they're doing. And so it's not just Tina, but Laura and Lindley and Mario and all the other staff and all of the people that are here that have supported. We really appreciate it. It's quite extraordinary. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's hear from Marwin Begay next. Marwin.
Ja, det är kwasen. Hast isia dashajinne deshchitnin ja sitnadzini bashchin tutsohni dashache chanela ai the batlajin. My English name is Marwin Begay, and my Navajo name is the man who stands under the tree. And my clan is Deschitni, which is from Arizona, and that's where the red streak starts. And my father's clan is the Black Streak clan. We're a mountain people, so right where the mountain happens and the trees start to change from green to black. That's and my grandfathers are the Big Water clan, and my other side is the Black Sheep. And so I mainly grew up in New Mexico, the northwest, not the northwest, but the west side. It's like the last city when you're driving I-40 going west to California, it is the last city that you will go through to get into Arizona. And most people know Gallup as, yeah, that's where I broke down, and we had to spend a night. So, so anyway, I'm a Navajo artist. I grew up with my family, the women of my family did textiles, and the men in my family made jewelry, and they, since we live so far from society, we usually had to rig stuff, and that's where, I guess, when I was a child, that's where I got to notice the magic happened, because we were always like fixing stuff, and we're always putting stuff together, and that to me was sort of an art on its own. And if you were to interview my daughter, she would say, yeah, he likes to invent stuff. So instead of going out and buying it, I like to sort of put stuff together to make it work. And I really have a hard time describing things to people, and I was like, I'll just do it, and I do it, and they're like, oh, that works. So by trade, I teach at the University of Oklahoma. I teach printmaking and painting, and I'm a printmaker. Mainly, I started out as a painter, and how I became a printmaker was I was asked to sit because they were looking for warm bodies. At the time, I was living in Santa Fe, and some Aboriginal artists came for a visit, and they didn't have enough artists show up, so they were like, hey, you're an artist, why don't you just come and sit in our studio and visit and talk, and you don't have to do any kind of printmaking. And so as I sat there, I started watching them, and our culture is based around observing your surroundings. So just in case you have to sort of step up and be the person to help. So we love people watching. So sometimes we just go into hotels and just watch people. No. Anyway, sorry for the digression there. So as the workshop happened, I just started like, what would happen if I do this? What would happen if I do that? And then I was hooked. Once it came through the press, I pulled my first print, and I was like, I love this. I love the energy and the quickness, and then I met Melanie Yazzie, who was very instrumental for me to go to New Zealand. About 20 years ago, she was looking for artists as well, and then I think Sandy came to Santa Fe, and she called me up. She was like, hey, I want you to meet someone. And so I was like, all right. I didn't know what the meeting was about. I was like, all right. Melanie asked me to do something, so I'm going to jump and do it, which I still do. And so we sat down with Sandy, and not having a clue what was going on, and he invited us. He extended an invitation to come down, and I did. It was just, taking that risk, going to a place that I've never been before. So I went, and that changed my life. I met some of the people here who are participants, and throughout the years we've become a lot closer, like family. And thank goodness for social media, because that's the way we stay in touch, and we know what's going on with our personal families and celebrations, and we just share. But that sharing is nothing like being in the present of them and their creative spirit. I think that is very. It's great, because as the previous leaders had said, that really feeds you, and it really keeps you going until the next gathering. It's I think it's very important that that these kind of gatherings happen because of the sharing. As Indigenous people, we're taught to share food, share our knowledge, share our perspectives, and so that to me is very very life-changing. So as you sit in the studio, you get these moments where, and you get this energy, and you just have to make art, and that's very important, because that's who we are as Indigenous people, is that we speak through the art, and that what comes out, that beautiful. That beautiful thing that happens is the reflection of the Almighty. So I just wanted to say thank you to the Longhouse staff for all their long hours. This is the first day that I see Lindley Logan before 10 o'clock at night, because usually that's the only time I get to see him, which is we're just very busy, and we're on the second floor on Lab 2. And just the work that is just coming out of our studio is incredible, and it's very addictive. We're starting to watch the time, and we've already timed it to how fast we can walk from the studio to eat lunch and then come back. And usually we're stepping lightly and just walking really, just thinking about it, and it's a really sacred space for us. And through the week, you just start seeing the participants just sort of drifting off, and they're thinking about it. They're in that space, that very sacred space, and and so that I like that. And so I'll talk about my piece. My piece is over here in the corner. It's a wood block that I cut about 3 months ago, and being a steward and being taught to care for the land, being taught to respect the land and respect the water, and all of our relatives on this earth. And it speaks toward the resources that are being taken out of the earth for money, and it's the circular motif is a pipeline that I've cut, and inside the pipeline there's the gas and the oil and all of that, and the injection water and for fracking and all the poisons, I guess. And on the in the background is my stylized motif as water. So I kind of brought those two together, and that's just one of the kinds of work that I do a lot, and when I do I guess people call them my protest pieces. They're usually black and white, and that's just to bring awareness of our environment that we're here to take care of. So that's my piece. If you guys want to see more, please come up to the second floor. That's actually like a little earring size wood block that I've cut. I usually work a lot larger, and I did bring some so that you guys can see how obsessive compulsive that I am with the really fine detail. But it's been a joy to work with this crew. We get beginners to the very advanced, and we're like sharing like no other. We're sharing techniques. We're sharing how we do things, and one of the things that participating in these indigenous gatherings have taught me is that you could just set up anywhere and just make a studio. You know, you don't need the beautiful fancy equipment that we have, although it's really nice. This studio is brand new. I think we've kind of broken it in officially, and you know, that's, you know, usually when we do these gatherings, it's just a closet, and we're making do, and that really has taught me a lot in my teaching career, where I just teach, and I was like, let's just put a table right here, and let's just go right now. Let's go, and we're gonna need this. So it's always fostering. I find myself always fostering that creative spirit, whether it's in little kids or adults. So thank you very much. Thank you for asking me to host this. I feel like I think I am the youngster of the leaders, and I feel like I only know just a little bit about printmaking, and so one more story. When I came, I went to the carving studio because the last time I was here, it was just the structure. There was nothing inside, and so and they've already had classes and all of that, and so they have artists and resident artists come through, and I was like, oh, I really want to see this. So I went in there on the first day and got to see the amazing works, and I just wanted to carve, and I was just like, I got to get into that studio, just get me my key, and it started there, where it was just, you could already feel that energy. So as community members, thank you for supporting this event, and I'm going to challenge you guys to keep up this. You guys have a responsibility now to keep up this energy, and if you guys want to feel that energy, just come over to the studios and just watch everybody run, because this is our last full day and night of making work, and it's very exciting because we're starting to sprint now, like running across the room, running back, running over here, running back. So, and it's very comical to see, but a lot of times we're all on the same sort of vibe. You know, there's this energy that's just pulsating in there, and so, and it's really strange, because anyone who walks in, they just are like, oh my gosh, can I do something? I was like, yeah, I'll just jump in. So if you guys want to come see, please do, and we'll give you a really quick tour, and then get back to work. And again, thank you guys, thank you. Thank
you. Okay, next we'll hear from Jim Denemy.
Buju and Dinaway a Siganak Indigenous Cause, Odawa Zaga Iganing, Minowa, Ajijakni Dudame. My name is Jim Denemy. My Indian name is it's a Siganak, and it translates to red-winged blackbird. I'm from Lakudere. My reservation's near Hayward, Wisconsin, and I'm a member of the Crane clan. I'm really honored to be here, not just today, but this whole week has just been fantastic. I grew up wanting to be an artist since I was about 5 or 6 years old. I can remember that far back, enjoying coloring and drawing and eagerly participating in art classes whenever they were offered in school. By the time I got to 10th grade at Minneapolis South High, there was a 2-year experiment with modular scheduling, which was similar to college, and it was meant to prepare us for college. But in Minneapolis, modular scheduling was a disaster. We were goofing off too much, getting high, cruising. I knew after one semester I wasn't going to succeed in that format. The art room was open, so whenever I wasn't off goofing around and there wasn't a class scheduled, I was free to go in and grab materials, mainly canvases and paints and paint. And so shortly after, I went to my high school counselor and asked if I could transfer to a school where I could focus on art. And she told me that was a terrible idea. There was no money, no jobs, no future in art. And I said, well, it's either that or I drop out of school. And so I ended up dropping out of school when I was 16 years old, getting a full-time minimum wage factory job, and getting into a lifestyle of party and addiction. So I continued that way for the next 20 years, and I gave up art. Yeah, being in that alcoholic world is really a small vacuum. And 1989, I came through the other side of my alcoholism. And in 1990, well, right away, I could see the world in different eyes. And so I knew that I wanted to change something in my life. I wasn't sure, but I decided to go back to school. I enrolled at the University of Minnesota in 1990, and I wanted to get into the health sciences and out of construction. And so I enrolled, and I was intending to get into anesthesiology or something in there. But I ended up taking some art classes as part of my CLA requirement, and it stimulated that artistic spirit in me again. And at the same time, I got involved with the Native community on campus, and I found a lot of younger people like me who were not taught everything by their elders and their parents because of the assimilation campaign. And so we were all going back trying to locate some of these things that were left behind. And so it was really a really great place and a great time to be there. And so in 1995, I graduated with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree and a minor in American Indian Studies. So now I was qualified to drive cab or go back to drywall. I chose to go back to drywall because it became a vehicle. It allowed me to paint what I wanted to paint and not necessarily what I needed to sell. And so I was able to develop more challenging subject matter, and I became recognized for it. I started to get invitations for some prestigious shows and started to get some awards and grants. And my art has taken me all over the country and into Europe. And I've met a lot of great people, both Native people and non-Native. I work in both arenas. My art travels everywhere, but I've really found a family in the Native arts community across the country, and it's brought me here. I was here at the first event, the first gathering, 2001, and I was so excited when I got the invitation to come back again, because I knew I'd be seeing people that I haven't seen since then. And then, so that has happened, but it's also, I've seen people I haven't seen since further than then, or even some more recently, but it's been a great reunion. And I've also met people for the first time that I've been aware of some of their art and some of these people, but also I've met brand new people. And I've never felt so welcomed as I have here. I have not had a negative moment since I got on the airplane. It's just been wonderful. And so I'm leading the painter group, but I'm not leading. Every artist there is an established, very talented, hardworking artist. The studio is fun. Music's on, people are laughing and storytelling. So my role is more of a butler. I make sure people have their supplies and whatever else they need. So, like I said, they're making fantastic work there. I'm very honored and proud to be a part of this group, as well as the other genres too. There's just a great gathering of very talented artists and grateful, humble people. So yeah, if you get a chance, come up to the painting studio. We're in the same building, the same floor as the jewelry and the printmakers. So Lab 2, second floor. Thank you.
Thanks, Walter. Okay, next I'm going to ask Larry McNeil to share a few words.
Gunashish, and thank you for showing up. I'd like to thank everybody who organized this gathering, and because it's such a special event, between all the international artists, the Maori, all the really fantastic Maori artists, all the really fantastic Hawaiian artists, and all the artists from the mainland here. It really is a humbling experience to be around so many truly gifted and hardworking artists who give so freely. I think that's what stands this group apart, is that we feel like, when we're together, we really feel, this inspiration and want to share what we, the gifts that we have, our knowledge and expertise and so forth. And I think that our commonality, from all the different groups, is that we're survivors, since ancient times. We've had to experience a lot of hardships through the past few hundred years, and so we've not only survived, but we've held on to our culture, the things that are important to our people, and we serve as inspiration to our own people and other people too, by the art that we make. And I think, what is art anyway? And I'm constantly asking that question, why do we make art? And I still don't know what the answer is. I think it has to do with us as human beings experiencing life and just trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out what it all means, and making art that offers some kind of interpretation to our cultural experiences and our life experiences, and sharing it with other people, and so I think about what are the things that influence this generation that we're going through right now, and I think, well, that's kind of an easy one. The human beings have had such a significant impact on planet Earth. We're, as we all know, we're devastating the planet, and we're in a unique time in our history to be offering our own interpretation of what that means. And I find myself asking myself, what am I going to tell grandchildren that are born in 1850 about what we're doing this year, 2017? And I think that's what everybody in here is doing. They do. I think that all the artists in here they're offering their interpretation of what's going on, right now, here and now. And for better or for worse, whatever that means. And I think that's what keeps things very vital. That adds vitality to it. Because when you sift everything else out, it's about life. It's about us trying to figure out what life is about. And when I walk through this gallery, I can see that. See what all the different artists are doing. What are the Maoris doing? What's their experience been? The Hawaiians and the things that Marwin and Nora were talking about, and all the other artists, So that I think that's one of the benefits of taking a gathering like this. Is we have the ability to continue making art and to talk amongst ourselves and among groups and so forth. And I've been a teacher myself for 25 years. I love working with young people and received various fellowships through the years. And some of my favorite ones are where I go someplace else and I interact with young people. To me, that's just one of the great things that we can do is offer our knowledge and what we know with the future generations, and help nurture them, and do what we can to, make them successful artists too, and human beings, and so forth. And so I'm working in photography and digital media, and when the first gathering that I came to was in 2001. And I already knew Joe Feddersen from 30 years ago, and Melanie Yazzie has been a colleague of mine. We taught together at the Institute of Canadian Arts in Santa Fe years ago. But I always wanted to try printmaking as a medium, because it has so many commonalities with what I do. And same with Porky. Porky was there. So that was just such a fantastic opportunity to learn printmaking from these really amazing artists. And so I essentially lived in the studio. And that was great. So I learned a lot of things about, visuals and so forth. And I still remember the second to last day of that gathering in 2001, Joe Feddersen came back into the studio and he was pointing at the paper and he was kind of laughing. He said, "Look at all this paper that's up." He said, "Okay, everybody, you need to make some big prints." So he walked me over there and he said, "Hurry, look at all this beautiful paper, and it's blank." So he threw down the challenge, and so I made a piece called "Yes," and that's Tlingit for Raven. And that was totally inspired by Joe, with his challenge, so I credit, those artists, and I think that's one of the really great things about this gathering too, is that we can feel more free to cross mediums. We don't have these artificial boundaries set up, saying, okay, you're a photographer, you're a printmaker, you're a painter, you're a sculptor, and we can be all of those things, because there's elements of the different media that speak to us and allows us to express ourselves in different ways. And that's where I wanted to thank everybody associated with the Longhouse and especially Tina Kukan, because I know that Tina does a lot for organizing it and being the main driver behind a lot of this. And the Maoris, with their Tiwakatoi and their organizations where they, I can see where there's a lot of organizations where there's some very, very intelligent, intellectual thinking and planning and strategies, going into making all this happen. So it's really nice to see that that is another commonality, with the different organizations. They've got all these strategies and hard work behind the scenes to make it a reality. And so I have a very sincere appreciation for that. So with that, I'd like to just say Guna Sheesh. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and I hope that you're able to go visit the different studios and see what all the different, very creative, gifted artists are doing. So thank you.
I also need to sit down and be able to just on the run for. Actually, it's been 2 years. I'm a part of the advisory committee for the Longhouse, and we have been planning this for 2 years. And the day we came, the very opening day, it was very emotional to see our friends, everyone that's come back, and whether it was Hazel Creek, member of the Chehalis tribe. She was the master weaver in 2005. And my sister Yvonne and I were able to join her and support all of the work and meet the weavers. And so over these 20 years, we've just been in contact with all of our friends that we met along the way. And so again, even with our group, I mean, these words have already been said by the ambassadors, that everyone in our group, and we do have the largest group here, we're in the Longhouse, so please stop by. We have a table of completed objects. Yvonne and I wanted to, we brought in some friends and asked them to teach a specific type of basket each day. But unfortunately, that for all of our people in our group, they didn't want to miss anything. They had been working 24 hours to try to finish one basket to get ready for the class the next day. And so now we have, everyone is in a stage of 3 or 4 baskets behind. And they feel like, oh, I'm behind schedule, I have to finish this. So we brought in all of the native materials and plants from our area: cattail, sweetgrass, beargrass, cedar bark. And we know that our group, they all are masters in their own right, and that's why we are here. And it has been such a time of sharing. We are learning new starts, and we're learning new ways to do the thing we know. And we're learning new ways to incorporate more of the material. I remember my mother said, geographically, the Indian people in this area would have used all of the native plants in our art. And today, we can reach around the world. So we can use the flax from Hawaii and the raffia from the Asian countries, and we can use anything in the world and incorporate that into our projects that we're working on now. But I did this basket up here, and I just wanted to mention that it was it's a replica of a basket that was returned to the Chehalis tribe. We've had several families look at their basket collection over the last 70 or 80 years and return them to the tribe. And it's a time of joy and tears to see the work of my great-grandparents coming back. So we have the opportunity to look at those and study them, and now repeat those things that have been in our families for generations. But they, this style happened to be from an archaeological dig on the banks of the Chehalis River. Through one of the flooding seasons, a canoe came out of the bank and was sitting there. So we called in support to come in and gather that information at that site. And there was a basket there. So the X stitch actually is something that tribes all across the Northwest do. Everyone knows the X stitch, and we know how to incorporate that. But we do the base, the foundation, and we have a turning row. There's a distinct turning row. And then we start up the side of the basket, and then we start the X. This particular basket, and the basket that we found and was returned to our tribe, the X is actually on the base of the basket. And we have never seen that anywhere. Everyone knows the X stitch, but we always put it on the side. So even the information about why that would be necessary. Why would a weaver put the X stitch on the base, on the foundation? And if you take a look at that, you'll see the X's actually on the base of the basket. And as we talk to our elders, and do you remember this? Do you have stories of this? I could imagine, and actually we do also call it a clam basket, but I could imagine that it would be for camas. Something where the material had to go in and we needed air in there to dry. So you wanted air coming up from the base. But see, that specific information, this type of basket is so ancient to us that we don't even know why that would have happened, why it was made that way. And now that I've seen it in other collections, at Skokomish, they also had a basket very similar to ours. And I think there must have been some connection, some family connection, because it's very made similar to the one that was returned to us. We also are the 7th generation from the time of the signing of the treaties. So this young doll here is actually by the 9th generation in our family, Yvonne's children and grandchildren. So they all took a piece and put this doll together and made a dance outfit, regalia for this doll. And so we were talking about it, this dance regalia, and so my son stepped out of the room, and a few hours later he brought back a dance paddle. So it really is a family work for that one. And then we also brought in my Aunt Cindy, who's an elder in the Chehalis tribe, who did the pine needle. So every day we've had elders come in and then be working with their material and teaching the group, as our workers also brought their own material and have their own ideas and projects that they wanted to complete while they were here with us. But it has been such a great time of sharing and laughter and the stories and how weaving has saved personal lives. To hear that story from our weavers, it is just inspirational to be a part of that discussion. And as I walked into this show the other night, the night we opened, I ended up, I was the first one in. I was leading the group down the hallway, and it just took my breath away from the very first glass project. And so my extended family, they're in the glass blowing project, they're in the painting, they're in the printing, they're seeing everything that can be done here. And my niece, who actually did the dress on the doll, she's over with the glass blowing with Dan Friday, and she said she went over there the first day, and she had planned to be with us because we actually had her working, and we said, well, this day you're going to be teaching this. And she went over to the glass blowing, and that night she said, I had a vision. My grandmother came to me about a basket design, and I saw it in this glass project, and I need to go over there and do it. So that's one of the projects that you will see over there, using basketry and our designs in a new modem, a new style. And that's culture. We are alive and changing and using everything in the world that is at our hands to produce this art. And I just wanted to thank everyone, and please do stop by the Longhouse. We have plenty of food. We have coffee. Everyone, we are moving. We go out to dinner at the tribes that have hosted us every night, and we run back to the Longhouse because they're saying, I have to get this done. And so we're racing back to the Longhouse to keep weaving. And we're there at 7 in the morning. We have fresh coffee. Please join us. But we have baskets and weaving in all types types of processes. And soon, I hope they'll get to the finishing row. But thank you. I raise my hands to you.
Okay, next I'll ask Marquez Marquesan to tell us a little bit about his work.
O nauna I ka hala me ka lehu, he hale lehu ano I anaka no. O ka uno ia no I ne eli ane ho yo ka hiki mai. A hiki mai na o kou, a hiki puno me ke aloha. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e. Aloha. My name is Marcus Hanalei Marzan, and I'm honored and privileged to represent my people and the visual artists from Hawaii. Much like a lot of the previous speakers, I've been able to attend a number of gatherings on the heels of my teacher, Maile Andrade. She brought me to my first gathering, much like Lillian brought many of the other people that spoke earlier. She brought me to my first gathering in the year 2000, and I've been attending gatherings ever since, creating relationships with everyone, reaffirming relationships with the friends and colleagues that I've made over the years. I am a fiber cultural practitioner, basket weaver, cordage maker, different kinds of woven materials. And I think I've been able to be a part of a number of the studios this gathering, using the techniques and knowledge that I know through weaving in different forms. So going to the jewelry studio and using copper and other metals, going to the glass studio and working with them to create different things, and going to ceramics and creating things, all incorporating the knowledge and techniques that I'm most familiar with, but in interpreting them in a different way with different materials and media. And I think that's kind of what the group of artists from Hawaii represents. We represent all different media, but we come together as a group trying to share the skills and knowledge of our people with everyone, and learning along the way. I think for me, the artwork that I have presented in this gallery is in the back corner there, but it's much like what I carry, I've been carrying every day. This is my water bottle. And it's done in a traditional, in the traditional Hawaiian technique called koko. Koko is the net carriers that we would use to carry our water bottles, our gourds, our food carriers from place to place when we would travel. And as you can see, this one is quite ornate. But the symbolism of the outside is to protect what's inside, to keep the interior safe on that journey. And with this is actually one long continuous length of cordage that's been looped and knotted into place. And I think that's very much a symbol and idea that I hold dear to my own personal work and what I hope to convey in my artwork. The idea that even though it looks as if there's a whole lot of techniques and different things happening, it's actually all one continuous piece. It's all connected in one place. They might be turning in different ways, but in essence, it's one continuous piece. And I think we have a lot of traditional stories and practices in Hawaii that honor the carrying net. One particular story or one particular
note I'd like to share is we have a number of healing chants in Hawaii, and a lot of them end with a series of recollections. It goes, Palalau hala, haumaka iole a kai koko, a kaui kapua neane. So in these healing chants, we ask for us to have the yellow skin of the hala leaf, referring to the passage of time, for us to have the blurry eyes of the rat, for us to be carried in a net, and for us to have extreme age, all the way to the extremity of life, asking for all of that knowledge and wisdom and life experience so that we could share it with our community, our family. And I think the symbolism of the idea of kai koko, one of those epithets that we constantly use in these prayers, to be carried in a net, to be carried in a net just like this. You know, when people get old, we don't let them just stay in the house. We take them with us in nets. We would carry them and bear them, because it is our responsibility to care for our elders and make sure that they are safe. They are the knowledge holders. We look to them for all of the guidance and wisdom that they have and are able to share with us. So the symbolism of the simple water carrier is more than just a place to carry my water from place to place, but really is the symbol of the continuous link to our ancestors as well as our future generations. And I think all of the Hawaiian artists definitely have the same sentiment being expressed in their work, from three-dimensional forms to prints and photography. The idea of connecting and having that circle of life and reconnecting all of those elements together is very much consistent in all of the work that we have presented in this space. And I think I'm very honored and humbled that Mario asked me to come and speak to all of you on behalf of the delegation from Hawaii. So mahalo nui.
Thank you so much. Okay, next, Sandy Atzett, would you mind sharing your experiences with these gatherings and your perspective on what we're doing here?
Of course. Do I need to use this? I've got a big voice.
But we are recording this.
Oh, okay.
For these guys.
I hope you're going to get it severely. Well, kia ora everyone. My name's Sandy Atzett. I'm from Ngāti Pāhuera, and that's a tribe of the burnt beard. We did have a very illustrious name for our ancestor way back, and it was Kauotarangi, the cloak of the heavens. However, as with the tradition, they needed to dry the head when he passed away. Put it over a fire, it fell in the fire and burnt his beard. So what we have always, we've got to protect yourself. So we can't have the tribal group down the road coming to say, oh, you once, your ancestor got his beard burned. So we took the name Pāhuera, which is the tribe of the burnt beard. So we've been on the defensive ever since. But however, what we do enjoy is the challenge as Māori. We are always being, very offhand with your nearest neighbours, because they're always attacking you. And when the Europeans first came to New Zealand, the ministry, and with our culture, we had deity gods of the forest, of the sea, and our wonderful man was Tūmātuenga, and he was the war god. So along came the Europeans, and they had guns, and we said, whoa, I think we should take on that religion, because their war god is a hell of a lot more powerful than ours. But however, while we were praying, they were around the back cleaning up all our land and buying that for blankets, so it wasn't such a good move. So we've always had something that we have as a way of being disruptive. So we look for the excuses. But our gatherings and meeting up with other cultures and we're part of Polynesia, so we're down the cold bit of Polynesia. Marcus is in Honolulu, of course, the warm end. And we said, how come we, and started off in Tahiti, how come we went south and you lot went north? You know, we prefer to have gone north. So, and our place is pretty cold. So I said, we yell and we jump up and down because we're cold. Whereas they're on the beach and they're lovely and, you know, and everything is sweet and everything else. So, you know, you reflect the environment that you grow in. And some of the things that, and we didn't connect with them or anyone else until the Americans came along with their Hollywood culture. Then we found out, okay, so, you know, here are these wonderful people from Hawaii. And of course, with the native people of America, of the Native Americans, well, you know, in the movies, we cheered for the cowboys. And every time the cavalry came over the hill, we cheered again. And we said, and when the Indians turned around, we go, yeah, here they go. And then some of our elders says, hang on just a minute, you lot. You know, you need to start thinking about who these people are. After all, you know, the Lone Ranger wears a mask, so he must be a bit dodgy. And, you know, but then as well, we're also saying, however, they've got wagons, you know, and they ride in wagons. The other lot, they make their women walk, and they carry their luggage on some thing at the back, so we're not too sure about that. But then we said, no, hang on, you have to... Never mind about Kimasabi, you've got to go with Tonto. And so that was one of the things that, you know, we said for ourselves that we need to not just listen or hear or read about other people, we need to go and see. And we also need to bring them to us because we hope that, you know, we are able to, and it's true, because when we share our story about the Earth Mother and the Sky Father and how we separated our parents because it was the long night, you know, we can talk those stories to other people, other indigenous cultures who may have similar stories. And you know that, of course, they accept it. It may be a story, a legend, but it's still part of the culture that we work in. So these gatherings are hugely important for us. And when people come to us, we're so grateful because we're so far away from everyone that we want to look after them because it's important that we do that. So I know that Tina, having that relationship, and she took it up to another level. We started with our gatherings through an arts organisation to get the funding, but we hosted it at June Grant's marae. We went to the marae. Over the last few years, we've sort of moved into tertiary because they had the facilities like this. But we're going to have another gathering in about 18 months' time. And we said, we've got to go back to the people. So we're going to host it in our tribal area, which is Ngāti Kaungunu. So rather than inviting people out to New Zealand to be with Māori, we want to invite them to our tribal group, and we will revive what we are calling Te Moana Nui a Kiwa, which is about the sea. So we're looking at how do we create our dugouts. What did they do? Crayfish pots, the eel traps, all those things that we no longer have, but it makes us feel good because we're working with materials from the land, and then even, you know, we said to do a dugout, we're going to have to go and cut down a tree. But the tree, we need to do it properly because in our stories, you know, we've got a story that because Rata one of the ancestors didn't ask for permission from the god of the forest to cut down the tree. He cut it down, or they cut it down, went home, the next morning they came back and the tree was standing back up again. So, okay, they cut it down, and same thing happened. Next morning they came back, standing up, so they watched. And they said during the night, all the tūrehu, or the fairies of the forest, came and put back the tree. And so we said, respect the environment that you're in. And we know that, but we need to think about what we need to do to make people relate to something that was part of our identity And what we need to do is to try and understand what was the reason for us engaging in what is karakia, or the things that allow you to complete something that you begin as a creative art form. So that's us as Māori, and we're here in number because we're under a challenge, you see. So I brought some of the young ones from our tribal group because there's another gathering also happening, which is through Te Atinga. I said, we've got to go in numbers because you've got to go there and present yourself as young people because we want their generation to follow on. We've begun the networks years ago, but they're here to do that, and they have a responsibility, and the only way you can do it is to show them what needs to be done and then commit them. So again, Mario, and the gallery looks great on from the previous one that we had here. We all signed, we walked along the walls that way. It's just stunning. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, June Grant, would you mind sharing some of your thoughts, please?
Don't believe anything she says. She's from the neighbouring tribe. First thing she'll contradict what I want.
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa. Greetings from my tribal land, which is at the same place that Sandy comes from, the bottom of the South Pacific. I am fortunate to be living and working in my own tribal area. For a lot of artists, it's really difficult, and you move away from your people and then you get very lonely. My people come from a geothermal village called Rotorua. We have natural warm springs and geysers, and because it is a beautiful part of the world, we attract a lot of tourists. So from the 1800s right through until today, we've had visitors coming to see how Maori people live. So it's a living village, which is quite unusual in the world of New Zealand it is. And my grandmothers were all guides, but they were also weavers and artists and storytellers, and so we have wonderful stories from the village, and I'm really privileged to still be living in my tribal area because we have our language is the same from the top of the North Island to the bottom of the South Island, and that's very uniting because our protocols and rituals of encounter are exactly the same. So we can go to a strange tribal group but still know what the protocols are, so that we share that. And our language, of course, is we have more cultural centres where our children are speaking the Māori language. Our generation, Sandy's generation and mine, didn't grow up with the language, but I have great-grandchildren and grandchildren who speak the language, and it's exciting, but I still feel some of them, when I'm talking to them, I'm trying to speak Māori and they look at me like, what are you saying? So I understand their dilemma, but the other thing is that they're not only Māori is their first language, English is their second language, and believe it or not, some of the schools are teaching Spanish. They come to Mexico to have another language. So what I'm saying is that any language is good for children's developing minds. But I've been an artist most of my life only because I could draw well when I was a child. And as I got into the art world and went to art school, I met a whole new world of astonishing artists. And I've grown up in that world. We had our first gathering as a group of artists getting together to try and keep our contacts with people like Lillian and her tribal group and others that she encouraged to come out to Aotearoa. And that was really significant. And we look back on it because we thought how confident we were that we would have this wonderful gathering. But if you haven't been to New Zealand and you don't understand how a marae, it's one big longhouse. It's a huge house. And we had all these great artists that came, and they were sort of looking around really for where they were going to be living, but you're actually going to be living in this one room with your mattresses and you're living, sleeping beside it. So afterwards we realised how well, not about, I don't know if it was exciting, Lillian, but it was certainly different. And so now we know that we actually can we put people in more comfortable spaces and to have their privacy. But and that's how we live. But it was the hui, the gathering itself, created so much. Not only good energy but good medicine, and we've been continuing with this group of people for the last 20 years or so, and the networks are so important, and we love that places like Evergreen are able to support the ongoing gatherings, Tina Kukan and Laura and others who make it happen. So it's important that they have community support like you people. So we're very grateful for that. A lot of our artists are getting older, and so we keep thinking, in fact, the name tag is not for other people, it's for me. I go, oh my God, I'm here, you know. And I did have a residency here in 2008, and I would walk from the car park every day to the Longhouse, and you know, it's a journey I make often in my dreams. So this is home for me. And when I got here, if you come to Aotearoa, you'll realise, because we have big pine forests and native forests, and we have deep waters, and so the land is familiar. So even though your continent is huge, and it's hard to believe because we live on two little islands and we can go from one coast to the other in about 5 hours. But when I first came here, and Tina and I flew to New York, and we were in a plane for 9 hours still flying to get to one place on the other side of your island. So this island has been is known about from our people. From the Polynesian islands, we have moved out on the tides to the west coast. So there's groups of Maori and Hawaiians all the way through the coast who have married into different First Nations group all the way through. In fact, we were in Vancouver, and there was on Vancouver Island we had a group of tribal people who came to us and said, in the 1800s, 3 Maoris arrived on our shore in a canoe, in a waka. They wintered over with us. They helped us carve a canoe. They took 3 wives and they left our shores, and we want to know what's happened to them. Well, we don't know because they didn't come back to New Zealand, as far as we know, but that's the interrelationships, and that's what's been happening over the centuries. So we're not unknown to each other. It's just great that we have planes now that we can get here sooner. So we love being here, and to reconnect with all our friends. Kia ora. Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Lindley.
Thank you, Jen. Okay. The last artist that we'll ask to speak, of course, is Lillian Pitt, because everyone's kind of referenced Lillian's role in all of this. And then to close, I'm going to ask Tina to say a few words. But Lillian Pitt, please.
Oh, slow to get up. So, yeah. You know, I just love being here with all my heroes, my fellow artists who I have admired and loved for so many years, and being with my Aotearoa friends. Welcome again. And I noticed with all the talks that we have this interconnectedness. And whether it's to our work, to the land, to the water, to the mountains, you know, and this is something you just can never find any place. And I always feel so welcome and so loved and loving to everybody. And it's just been an amazing experience. And excuse me, I've been in the printing studio, so And I can't stand up straight either. So, and there's Joe Fedderson, and he was elusive yesterday. He was just, I've got to find that Joe. And then pretty soon I got to find that darn Joe. And then next thing was, that damn Joe. He's big just like Coyote, you know. People see him and then he's gone, and then he's gone. They see him. I'll send a message, everyone says, and they can't find Joe either. And Joe was the one that got me started in printmaking many years ago. And he gave me the Dickens through the beginning to the end of all kinds of printmaking. And so I became addicted to it, but then I couldn't let go of clay. And in 1984, I went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and went to John Quick to see Smith's celebration dinner, and who was there but this gentleman and his wife, and I kept looking at him, and he really looked like he could have been my father's brother. And they had everything in common except the language. And I said, where, are you from around here? Well, that's how that all starts, you know. You know they're not from New Mexico. And so, and I thought, he's not, I got to find out about this guy. And he says, I'm from New Zealand. And I thought, oh dear, where's New Zealand? And, you know, and how do you ask without feeling stupid? And so, but we kept talking, and he said, you'll have to come down and see us. And I said, okay. This was in '84. I was just starting to be an artist, I'm a late bloomer. And my friend Barbara, who was dying of cancer, her last wish was to go to New Zealand. And I said, and she wanted me to go with her. And I said, I'll drive you around, and I'll take care of you. And so we went, and Darcy said, just let me know when you're coming, and we'll take care of you. And so, oh, it was just amazing. We were met at the airport by Fred Graham, you know. I mean, how many famous artists do you have meeting you? And I didn't know who he was, but he waited for 3 hours because our plane was late. How many people wait for 3 hours for you at the airport? They just figure, forget it, and go home. And then, so then it just, Darcy just networked me all up and down the North Island, meeting all these wonderful artists. And so, and I drove 2,000 miles in 2 weeks, and it was so much fun. But we went all the way up to Waitangi, and got to see some Maoris in their first canoe journey, and that was just so phenomenal. And then we went down to Duk'WibahL, and that was a place of heaven, because I met Manos, and I didn't meet Colleen. But we were so excited to be with each other that we could hardly wait till the other one stopped talking so we could talk. You know, we just felt like just talking at the same time. You know, we were so happy to meet each other. It was love at first sight, but friendship, brother and sister kind of love. And I thought, this is really, really rare. I've got to come back. And so it began that way. And then when I got the opportunity to go to the workshop, I didn't want to go by myself. So Denise got hoodwinked into going. I talked Harry Fonseca into going, and Rick Bartow, and Pat Courtney Gold, and a whole bunch of us. And it was just such a rich experience. And once you meet a Maori, you just fall in love, and it's love everlasting. And you're welcome all the time. And then so when I thought, this is such a great idea, so I told Tina, let's do this. And so in 2001, they did it. And I was just so thrilled that it happened. And then just a few years ago, at Clatsop Community College, Richard Rowland is a Potter teacher. And I says, you know, you got to meet the Muddies. That's what they called themselves. And so he worked, and he had a clay workshop, and all of Astoria, Oregon was committed to helping Richard do a wonderful, wonderful clay workshop. And so he's building a new kiln, and so the Muddies will be coming back to fire in the kiln for the first time. So you build these connections, you know, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And when we gather together, it's just like a big blessing, you know, where I'm so grateful we're all here. You know, we're missing a few that are very precious, and if I talk about them, I'll start crying. And so, thank you, Tina. Thank you, everybody, for coming and supporting us artists. Without your support, you know, we need your continuous support. And especially the young artists, you know, because they have to have something to keep them going besides us elders. And I was going to say oldie moldies and elders together, but and so, but I'm getting to the point where even printmaking is too hard, and I almost count the steps between the print shop and the cafeteria. And so I brought my own protein drink, and so I'm going to use that. And so, but it's been really a treat seeing everybody again, and I just love all the artists, and thank you, Mario, and Lindley and Rebecca helped install the show. The show is beautiful, but then you just expect beauty, you know, it's there. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Tina Kukan. I want to take a moment. I seldom get the mic before she does. So I want to take the moment to thank you for involving me in this. It was actually in 2001 that I got involved, but I understand it was Joe who sort of hoodwinked folks into like, get the new guy. He knows something about art. He'll hang all this stuff for you. That's how I got involved, and it really was a life-changing experience for me. Leadership requires vision, and for me, Tina has piercing vision. That means she doesn't see anything standing in the way. She sees what needs to be done or what she thinks is a good thing to do, and never for once blinks about what could stand in the way. And for me, that's a very powerful thing. And so I want to thank you for that, and have Tina have the last word.
Thank you, Mario. I want to thank Mario because this particular session that we're enjoying was his idea, and it's a great idea. So thank you. Mario always jumps in as a member of the team. He's normally on our board, but he jumps in as a member of the team and helps make all this work happen. So I want to acknowledge him. I had planned to just sit in the back and listen. So I'll keep it brief because I know that we'd love to see the artwork, and you've all been invited to go into the studios. But I am so glad that Lillian indicated that she had contacted us to ask about hosting the first gathering of its kind in the United States. She called back in 1998. And so we were able to host in 2001 because Joe Feddersen and I went to Aotearoa, New Zealand, because we wanted to ask that permission and to ask for the support. And so we presented to Te Atinga, the National Visual Arts Council, and said what we'd like to do. And of course, they hadn't heard of me, and they just, well, they would participate if Lillian Pitt was somehow involved, because she was the key to it all. And we assured them that A, Lillian Pitt is involved, and B, our Uncle Bruce Miller would oversee things from a spiritual and cultural perspective. Those were the two things they asked of us. So that began our journey, and I had always wanted to credit Lillian for having the vision to have this gathering at Evergreen. And she said, great ideas just take on an energy of their own. And so she wouldn't allow us to credit her. And that's one of the things that I've learned, is that the greatest artists are the greatest human beings. Today you got to hear from great artists, did you not? Yes, these are the great human beings. And they have very generously said to you, you are welcome to come into our space and have a look. So as an arts administrator and the person who knows that at 4 o'clock the buses are leaving for Skokomish, I'm letting you know that the tribes in this region have been extraordinary hosts, and every night we've gone out and we've had dinners, people have been in the canoes. Tonight we're going to the traditional longhouse at Skokomish. So it's going to be very tempting to engage in a lot of conversation, but for those artists who are joining us for our final excursion out to the tribes, they will need to be on the bus at 4 o'clock. So just letting you know that. So thanks again for your attendance and your participation. Hope you enjoy the show. The show will be up through December 10th. Most of it. Some of the pieces will return with some of the artists. But so if you want a longer opportunity to engage, then certainly you can just circle back to the Longhouse, and we're happy to, make that space available to you. So thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Dropping the mic.